Om. Om. Why, hello there. Brent here with Bring Your Own Tools. On today's episode, if you want to see how we completely transform these sad shelves from this to this. If you want to learn how to do it, keep watching. Let's get started.
Yep, these shelves are in my garage and they are hideous to look at. We need to change this.
As a man that works with a lot of different materials and a lot of different types of projects, I have a lot of junk drawers. Yep, this is a space that I just have so many things, whether it's tile work, whether it's electrical, whether it's plumbing. There's a lot of things in these cabinets that I need a specific drawer for, but as you can see, it's not that organized as well as it's not eye-appealing. We're going to fix both of those, including a few other caveats with this space. Let's get to it.
The bases of these cabinets are going to be designed around this storage container. They're approximately 27 inches long, 18 inches wide, and 12.5 inches tall.
This project all starts with a tub because I want a cabinet that actually holds multiple tubs at the same time, that's concealed, and I want a tub that I can actually put a lid on and then take to a job site, whether I need all my electrical components, all of my plumbing, tile, and so forth. It'd be a perfect amalgamation when I do different types of projects. So it all starts with a tub. Now we have to do a cabinet that goes around the tubs.
These cabinets are going to be in the garage and going to be roughed up a bit, so you want to start off with a good quality product, which is why I'm using 3/4 inch birch plywood. This is a really nice high quality birch plywood that actually has 12 layers of laminate. Yeah, that's quite a lot for a 3/4 inch product. And for one cabinet, you're going to need all 5 of these panels in order to fit 3 of these totes in one cabinet. I will be making plans for these cabinets, so if you want to build them yourself, please check out the link in the description box below. I first go about laying out as many of the panels as I can within this space, and don't waste the cutoff because the cutoff is going to be used later on within this video. Now I don't have a large enough table saw to manage these size of panels, so I'm using my homemade track saw with a normal circular saw. Very straightforward and easy, and if you want to make your own track saw, it's very easy. All it is 2 pieces of plywood, and just make sure you have a factory edge on the side that butts up against the circular saw. For a large sheet form cutting like this, I do always find it really nice to work on rigid foam because of the fact that it's rigid, so it's very stable, as well as the fact that you can cut right through it because it's foam. On a general side note, I am using 5x5 sheets for this material because that was the only way I could get this high quality product. However, within the drawing set, I will make sure and add some type of plywood cutting layout for a 4x8 sheet, which is going to be standard in most circumstances. Once we have all the plywood panels ripped up appropriately, I start sanding all the edges as well as the sides. I'm just using a standard 120 grit sandpaper and going over all sides of each piece of plywood because I want to have a nice cohesive finish over the entire thing, as well as make sure that any cut lines are smoothed out appropriately. After I have all of my plywood panels fully sanded down, I move them over to our table saw and cut a groove on the back side of our sides of the cabinet as well as the top and bottom. Now this is specifically because I'm going to be installing a plywood back panel on the back side of each cabinet. Now you can use a dado blade for this, but because it's such a small minimal cut, I'm just going to do 2 passes on each panel. Because we need to do 2 passes, otherwise we don't fulfill the thickness of that 3/16 of an inch, because a saw blade is more generally closer to 1/8 of an inch. I just move my fence as close as I can to the saw blade and then run it through one more time. This cleans up our back notch very nicely, and if you don't quite understand why we're doing this, we'll be getting to the back panel very shortly. But first, we're going to be using the strips from our waste. Yes, the waste from our previous cutting is going to be coming in very nicely at this point because we're going to be using them as our drawer slides. And now they are not going to be moving back and forth, but we're going to use them so our totes can actually sit upon these so we can slide our totes in and out, and these will be extremely structurally sound. I cut them all at approximately 1.5 inches wide and then sand all the sides down smooth. Once we have that taken care of, I then take them over to my chop saw and make sure that they're all at the same length, right at 26.5 inches long. Now that we have all of our pieces cut, we can start assembling, and the first step is to determine our spacing between each storage cabinet. We're on very tight parameters on this project because of a couple determining factors, which means that the totes themselves are 12.5 inches tall, and guess what the spacing is? 12.5 inches. I know, tight. Very tight. But it works out, I promise you. I already built the cabinet. It works, so we just need to get it installed. I'm using 1.5 inch long Craig cabinet screws, and those ones are specifically for interior use. Each cleat that I install is flush up against the front edge of our panel. Once we have all of these positioned and fastened appropriately, we can move on to our pocket holes. Now this is going to be used to fasten all of our panels together, and this little jig by Craig makes it so extremely easy to drill perfect holes at every single location. These holes are extremely important because to get the appropriate angle to make sure that they're fastened appropriately from panel to panel, you have to have a proper jig like this. And two, I don't want to see these fasteners everywhere, especially on the exterior of our cabinet, and this jig makes it perfect so you won't see a single fastener on the exterior side of our cabinet. One thing I did realize after the fact is that I do have to remove the top cleat for our totes because I can't get the pocket hole jig at this location with those in the way. So keep that in mind, but not a big deal either way. What is a big deal is to actually fasten these cabinets finally together, and for that I'm using a couple handy tools to make sure that we're properly square and aligned appropriately. The first one are these corner brackets by Rockler, makes it extremely easy to line up each panel. And two, I'm using a strap clamp by Bessie. Now these clamps are extremely handy, especially in large formats like this, because all I have to do is get it around the surface and then hand crank it tight and it becomes an extremely strong hold. With both of these clamps in place, it becomes very easy to fasten our screws together without any worry of movement as we're installing our screws. Once we have the top row of fasteners taken care of, I then flip the cabinet over, reinstall that Bessie strap clamp, fasten the top row as needed once everything is aligned, and then the preceding middle rows after that. This way, the cabinet is extremely square and perfect for our remaining steps. But in order to make sure that this cabinet stays square, I do want to provide a bit of blocking on the back side. I cut a more sizable 6-inch wide scrap piece from the panels we cut previously, and of course used our Craig pocket hole jig to make sure that we had proper fastening on both sides. I kept this blocking in place with a pipe clamp in order to make sure that that wasn't going to be going anywhere when it came time to fastening. I secured it nicely at the bottom of our cabinet as well as the top side, but I didn't go all the way to the very top because of our cleating system, which isn't a big deal. It's just about making sure we have a structurally sound box. Now that we have our cabinet box in place, we need to have a back panel, and this is where our back panel comes into play. As I noted before, this is a 3/16 inch thick plywood, which is perfect for a back panel of this sort. It's mainly not there for structurability, it's just there to make sure we have a nice cohesive finish on the back side, and I installed with 1-inch long brad nails. This panel does provide a bit of shear strength, so once you do have it nailed in place appropriately every 3 to 4 inches, you will definitely find that the cabinet box itself is a bit stiffer. We can now move on to our final panel, which is our front door panel. But the one thing that the door needs is some hinges. I grabbed my Craig hinge jig and drill holes at the appropriate locations. I place a door hinge 5 inches away from the very top and bottom of the door. That way it's aligned appropriately, and the nice thing about this jig is that it's so easy to use. All you have to do to set it up is just position it over your door and it perfectly cuts a hole at the correct depth. You should read the instructions as always, but it does make it extremely seamless, and the nice thing is that it also provides hole placements for your hinge screws. Just make sure you're not drilling these too deep so they're penetrating the front of your door. Now, all it is installing your hinge, which is as easy as 1, 2, screw. After I had both hinges attached to the door, I can then fasten it securely to our cabinet. The position of the door is easy because it's the same height as the cabinet. You just might have to finagle the hinges a bit to the right or left. Does anyone use the word finagle anymore? I like it. But moving on to our casters. These are 2-inch tall casters, and they're actually medium heavy duty casters, which means that each one of them can handle 90 pounds. That is plenty for this cabinet because that means that all 4 of these combined adds up to 360 pounds for one cabinet. As I said, plenty for this project, and all I had to do to secure them was position the holes appropriately, pre-drill them, and then fasten them securely. The one item of note for this installation is that the back side are fixed casters and the front side are actually swiveled casters with a locking plate. That way, if I don't want them to move at all, I can just lock them in place so the cabinet stays securely. And of course, any good quality cabinet needs a handle. I position the holes appropriately for the handle, drill them out accordingly, and then secure them with the provided screws. Just try and remember to add a bit of painter's tape on the front and back side of the board so you can avoid any marks on your cabinet as well as blowout. In the case you're one of those individuals like myself that doesn't like the eye appeal of this notch, I do use a bit of CA glue and an accelerator to secure a small piece of wood to match and then sand it down smooth. The final step of this project is to apply a finish to the cabinet. You don't have to provide a super hardcore perfect finish, but this Helicon clear finish by TotalBoat is a perfect finish in my mind because it does provide a good layer of protection as well as it dries extremely quickly within an hour. Not to mention the fact that you can also apply it extremely easy with a foam roller and a paintbrush. As we wait for our finish to dry, let's go ahead and get to these ugly shelves that just need to be completely removed and thrown away. Yes, but we can't throw away all this amazing stuff that I've collected over the years, which is why I'm bringing the totes. These totes, in my personal opinion, are the perfect size because they're deep enough to handle the majority of all this stuff, and the fact that they have a lid, so if I do take all of my painting stuff, all of my plumbing stuff and so forth to a job site, I can put a lid on it and we'll be good to go. But it's the moment of truth. Do these totes actually fit, and do they actually fit all together? 1, a 2, a 3. Yes, they all fit. And now I can say, we are done. I absolutely love how this cabinet turned out. Such a better eye appeal in this shop, which I actually care about. And the fact that it's so extremely functional for what I do for a living makes life so much easier. I can easily grab my stuff when I need it around the shop or bring it to a job site when I do my large projects. These things are extremely versatile and it is truly one beautiful, sexy beast. Now I just need to figure out where I'm going to find the time to make more of them.